Dave here. Data is a very broad topic and it's often widely misunderstood, both by people who work with data and sometimes even by experts. When you think about data, you probably know what it is intrinsically, but you might struggle to define exactly what it is. And if we look up the Oxford definition of it, it says that it's facts and statistics collected together for reference or analysis. And I think that's an extremely unhelpful definition because it tells you nothing about it, especially in the line of IT business. First up, these are very interchangeable words, facts, data, and information, and different circles will call them different things. And for simplicity, I'm just going to use those dictionary definitions there. So think about the concept of the colour red, or think about a fly just buzzed past your ear, or a car went down the road. Those are facts, and those are the noise around you. And it quickly enters your sphere of knowledge, and it just as quickly departs, and you wouldn't give it a second thought. What if I told you that the car that went down the road was actually a van, it was a Ford Transit, it was white, it had a ladder on the roof, there was a bloke driving it, and he was smoking a ciggy, and it happened at exactly 10:01 a.m. Suddenly that changes it a little bit. So I would say that data are groups of facts that have context, and it tells you something, maybe not you in particular, but it tells someone something. It has specific meaning, at least to someone, and it is the core of business. And if data doesn't have any of those properties, it could be useless. And everyone has and uses data, and its importance is relative, and we also need it to survive. If you think about a paleolithic human, they needed to know where the animals are and what stages of life they're in, and they also need to know how to deal with dangerous animals. And an agrarian, they needed to know the seasons, which plants grow when, they need to know how to tend them, how to pick them. And there's two core concepts there. There's just the raw data, and then there is to know. And sometimes in general life these terms are mixed, but when you're thinking about it strictly, it is important to separate them and know the difference between the two, because the actual data, it should not be opinionated and it should represent just the pure facts. And then it's a separate process to work out what does that mean, which is usually a human analysing it. So the hunter, they need to know about where the animals are, they need to know the weather, maybe the time of year, the time of day, and from all of that, they know if it is a good time to hunt, and they can formulate that, where, when kind of statement from the data. So when we're thinking about it, it's important that we separate those two concepts of just the raw data and what it may impart. So we record data in order to know. In the modern era, data is the lifeblood of a business, because a business can only make decisions when there is data to support it. So you can't open a new business, you can't market a product, you can't change your hours, you can't change your pricing without knowing how it may perform or what impact it would have. And data is also important for various auxiliary purposes that may not directly concern business as usual, BAU operations. Some examples would be government reporting. Governments will say, we need to know a bunch of stuff. Business usually wouldn't care about it, but it's something they may have to store and report on accurately. And externally, they can get requests from customers, such as, I want my information, and courts, or lawyers may make requests for data, legal requests. Data can come in two broad forms, either relational or non-relational. And relational data, it's exactly how it sounds. Data A has some relation to data B. An example would be a customer has one or more addresses. And non-relational data tends to be what's called schemaless, and its value and its format is determined when you want to read it. And some examples are an email, an SMS, or events from IoT devices. That's things like robot vacuum cleaners or dishwashers or something like that. You may even store them all together, and when you want to know about them, you may query it and work out what you want as you query that data. And the data also has primary and secondary sources. So it primarily comes from official systems. That's like accounting software. You might have customer relationship management software, CRMs. You could have an online store. And it secondarily comes from shadow systems. And that is stuff like they might have a personal spreadsheet you're using. You could have unofficial paperwork that's tucked in a drawer. There could be notes on your mobile device. There could be conversation histories with AI and messaging apps. And the shadow systems, they're quite dangerous to a business because it's hidden from reporting. It's never included in archiving, and it may not share the same security policy as the official data. So data that is very, very important or might be secret or has personally identifiable information, it will have security around it so it doesn't get leaked. The shadow systems may not share that security and could easily get leaked. So storing the data in the right format and correctly is one of the most important things in business IT. And there's some takeaways we can get from this. First up, ignore the noise, because these facts, they're everywhere and they're completely useless. And the noise can be worse than bad data, because if you're looking at something and all you've got is noise around it, you cannot see the forest for the trees. And if you pay attention, there is always more noise around you than you can possibly store. And in some scenarios, it also has more data than you can store. So you've really got to work with the business to determine what's relevant and what you need. And you need discernment to know what is and isn't important, and that can come with practice and experience. An example could be if you've got a car dealership, there's more data than you can possibly store about a car, but not everything about the car matters to a car dealership. Another thing is to ensure that data is correct, because if you've got bad data, it's way, way worse than no data at all. Because when data's bad, first thing you have to do is work out that it is bad, find out how and why it's bad. You've got to get the good data, then you've got to go and repair all the bad data and maybe reverse decisions and undo the damage that's caused by it. And if you're a custodian of data, if you are using shadow data, you should attempt to report it, so at least the business knows that shadow data exists, and do your best not to create it, but it can't be helped. It's always everywhere. And if you're in IT and you're designing the data, it is important to consider the shadow data, try to eliminate it by having official systems that cater to what is needed. And lastly, it's all about not confusing knowledge with data. Data should always be agnostic of meaning, and it should always ensure that the meaning can be derived from the data. So, as an example, if you need to know if something is overdue, you just store the due date, not the status, and then you calculate when it's overdue when you want to know. And in some cases like that, the language alone that you're using can be a very strong indicator of what is data and what is knowledge. Coming up next will be data quality, and have a good day.